Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Raja Kunj Bihari Raja, Kunj Bihari Radhe. Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha, Kunj Bihari Radhe. Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha, Kunj Bihari Radhe. Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha, Kunj Bihari Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra. Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Bala Gopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Bala Gopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gauranikaya, Jaya Gauranikaya, Jaya Gauranikaya, Jaya Gauranikaya. Jaya Gauranikaya, Jaya Gauranikaya, Jaya Gauranikaya, Jaya Gauranikaya. Jaya Panchatatra, Jaya Panchatatra, Jaya Panchatatra, Jaya Panchatatra. Jaya Panchatatra, Jaya Panchatatra, Jaya Panchatatra, Jaya Panchatatra. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Hari Ram Sankirtana ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Koti Vaishnava ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vidam
He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhum Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Veshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. It's nice to be back. Everybody's enjoying the warm, balmy weather. It's a whole 10 degrees today. We should be celebrating. My son is likely in shorts. So, thank you to our hosts for inviting us into your home so that we may celebrate this most wonderful occasion of welcoming Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita into their home. We're on a roll. This is the third installation, hopefully third of 10 or 12 to come. If we're successful in having a discussion today, all of you will become inspired to bring this Chaitanya Charitamrita into your home. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that if everything in the world was lost, but this Chaitanya Charitamrita was saved, then nothing would be lost. Now that's a very bold statement. He said if you had to save one thing, save this. It is so nectarian and so wonderful. But we know that knowledge has value. Right? Suppose I said to you that you had the knowledge to know what tomorrow's lottery numbers were going to be. How many would consider that knowledge to be valuable? We would all consider, wow, I would know what tomorrow's lottery numbers are going to be? And there would be a mass exodus out of here. And we'd all go buy lottery tickets, right? Why that knowledge we put so much value to? Because we know with that knowledge I can obtain some amount of wealth, money. And why that has value? It is just green pieces of paper. But it is not just green pieces of paper. It has the means for us to acquire so many things. So, the knowledge of tomorrow's lottery tickets has value because it can yield to us some money, which we then can dream about all the things we'll do. Don't have to work on Monday. I can buy a home in a much warmer place. I can have cars, and all these things will do. So it has great value. But do you know that there was a study done? They interviewed lottery winners. And you know what over 50% of them said?
They're poorer than they're poorer than before.
Close.
They wish they never won.
They wish they had never won it. Now that's a startling, unimaginable sentiment. So that knowledge that just moments ago we all thought would have value in the hands of those who had received that knowledge, not quite knowledge, but at least the results of that knowledge, had deemed it no value. I am worse off than before. So, the moral of this story is there is no limit to the amount of knowledge out there. So much information is there. But we're all in search of information that can bring about one thing for all of us. And that is happiness, peace of mind. Why that knowledge of the lottery tickets initially felt very good is because we envisioned a future of happiness and bliss. But we'll see in this discussion today between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramanada Raya what real knowledge can bring about. And this whole Chaitanya Charitamrita is giving us very practical instructions on how to find eternal happiness. This Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada explains in the introduction, is the activities of the living entity in immortality. Which means eternally, what is it that we all do that can bring about peace and happiness? And that what is explained within the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So now if I said this knowledge contains the keys to eternal bliss and happiness, how much value we would ascribe to this knowledge? A lot. You cannot put a price tag on it. So when we say the whole world could be lost, yet nothing is lost if the Chaitanya Charitamrita was saved, it actually is fact. Because everything within this world will give us some temporary enjoyment. But the instructions contained within this Chaitanya Charitamrita give us the keys to eternal bliss and happiness. And so what is this Chaitanya Charitamrita? We have Bhagavad Gita, we have Srimad Bhagavatam. How do these all interrelate? I thought we would discuss for a few more minutes, and then we'll get into this topic of today's discussion. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita is a practical instruction and application of the teachings contained within the Bhagavad Gita and to some degree also the Srimad Bhagavatam. We know Krishna came and he left us with 700 extraordinary instructions on how to find this peace and happiness. He told us at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Prityaja Mamikam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tam Sarva Papepyo Mokshamish Ma Suchapata. That you surrender everything and become my devotee, in essence. He says, I will take care of everything. But he has said it, but how many of us are ready to do it? It's not so easy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to show us how to surrender. His whole life is an instruction on how to bring about this most wonderful experience of real bliss and happiness in our life. So it is not just some ordinary biography. This Chaitanya Charitamrita describes the life and activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But his life and activities were for one purpose, to teach all of us how to find this most wonderful life. And who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami establishes in the very beginning of this Adi Leela. He says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna himself. But he has come in the mood of a devotee. Come in the mood of a teacher to show us how to find this blissful happiness. So through these volumes of literature, we see many, many pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the Adi Leela, this is broken up into 3 sections. There's the Adi Lila, which is the beginning. Lila means pastime, beginning pastimes. Madhya Lila, middle pastimes, and Antya Lila, the end pastimes. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was on this planet for 48 years. Just around the time Christopher Columbus was sailing west, in the late 1400s, was the time that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in Mayapur, Navadvip Dham, just near Calcutta, modern day Calcutta. He appeared under a neem tree in the house of Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata. They were his spiritual mother and father. And so for 24 years he lived within Navadvip. And he performed many, many pastimes. As a child, he was performing many naughty pastimes, entertaining all the residents of Navadvip. As he grew up to be a young boy, he became quite an erudite scholar of Sanskrit and was teaching. At approximately the age of 20, he then inaugurated this Harinam Sankirtana movement. He called his eternal associate, Lord Nityananda, who was waiting from Vrindavan, to join him. And from age 20 to 24, they propagated the chanting of the holy names. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered. This is the first 24 years of his life. This is all discussed in very brief form in Adi Lila. The more detailed pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's early years are given in Chaitanya Bhagavat, another book written by Vrindavan Das Thakur. So, at the age of 24, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to decide that it is now time to spread this message. And so he entered a renounced state. He took sannyas. A very traumatic experience for his associates. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the final 24 years of his life, he left Navadvip and entered a renounced state. So the first 6 years of this second half of his time here is described in Madhya Lila, this middle. And this is the largest section of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because during these 6 years, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled throughout India. And he was traveling, instructing, helping so many find this path of perfection and happiness, clearing up so many confusions and misconceptions. He traveled to Vrindavan. He instructed the Goswamis of Vrindavan. He went all over and ultimately settled in Jagannath Puri. And the final 18 years of his pastimes here, he settled into a very seclusion, a mode of seclusion, and performed many pastimes. And these are described in Antya Lila. This is just a brief overview of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's 48 years. And they are outlined in these beautiful books. But every page is a very practical instruction for us. So I thought today we could discuss one such exchange, and we'll see some very, very practical, tangible instructions for us. Okay? So we'll read today from Madhya Lila, chapter 8. And we'll start from verse 245. So we'll just chant the invocation prayer. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami opened virtually every chapter with this prayer, offering his obeisances and glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we follow in his footsteps by reciting this prayer before reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So a little bit of context before we start reading to discuss where we are. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after taking sannyas and some pastimes, ended up in Jagannath Puri. And there he stayed in the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And there he, we can say, corrected some of the misconceptions of this great Vedantist who had studied the Vedanta, was an erudite scholar of himself, yet was confused. And by the great mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he shined light on his darkness of ignorance. And after instructing Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided that he was going to go on a tour of India and begin to travel. And to go village to village, town to town, spreading the glories of chanting the holy names of the Lord. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, when you go to the south, you meet one personality. You must meet him. And that personality is Ramanada Raya. And so in this 8th chapter, the title of this chapter is Talks Between the Lord and Ramanada Raya. Now, Ramanada Raya was a governor, a great high positioned person under the rule of King Prataparudra. Srila Prabhupada describes in the state of Madras. He was the governor. So he was a very high person in society. Very wealthy by material means, but extraordinarily wealthy by spiritual means. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling to the south and he came to the river Godavari, which we know to be a very holy river. And there he was taking bath. And he decided to take some rest under one tree. And as he was taking rest under one tree and chanting the holy names of the Lord, he saw one great procession coming. And there were great musicians. And seated atop a palanquin being carried by some servants was Ramanada Raya, who had come to take bath in the holy Godavari. There were thousands of brahmanas who were following, reciting various mantras. And so in such a grand procession, Ramanada Raya came to this same spot and took bath in the Godavari. And he noticed this very effulgent sannyasi sitting under a tree. And being a great devotee, he became very attracted. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sitting under this tree, in his mind, was running to Ramanada Raya and embracing him. But physically, he remained seated under this tree. And Ramanada Raya went alone, leaving everyone behind, and went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he offered his obeisances and respects. And there was a great exchange between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramanada Raya. Actually, it's explained that Ramanada Raya is an incarnation of Arjuna, very dear friend of Krishna. And also, an incarnation, an expansion of Vishaka Devi, one of the principal gopis of Vrindavan. So there's an eternal relationship between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramanada Raya. And so their union was very, very sweet. And they exchanged great words of appreciation for each other. And then they began to speak. Now we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to preach how to practice bhakti. How to practically practice bhakti so that one can find this peace and happiness in life. What we think will come from a lottery winnings will actually come from reconnecting our spirit soul with the Lord. And how to do that is the whole mission of this book. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only left us with 8 verses. The Shikshashtakam prayers. 8 verses. So where his teachings come, there are 5 principal conversations that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has that are outlined in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And these 5 conversations, one I already referenced with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, one with Prakashananda Saraswati, 3 with Rupa Goswami, 4 with Sanatana Goswami, and 5 with Ramanada Raya. So these are 5 very principal discussions that are explained in Chaitanya. And each of them have extraordinary teachings. And of those, the discussions with Ramanada Raya, Rupa Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami carry the essence of bhakti. And we can say the most confidential of all those discussions are the discussions with Ramananda Raya. So it's very auspicious, and we're very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has presented this Chaitanya Charitamrita, so we can get into the essence of this conversation. So I'm going to fast forward. We're reading from verse 245 of this chapter, which means there are lots of verses before this point. But they met on consecutive evenings on the banks of this Godavari, and they would carry on discussions in ecstasy all through the night. And when the early morning would come, Ramananda Raya would return home and then do his day duties of being governor. But in the evening, he would come very quietly by himself, and he would have very sweet conversations with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the interesting thing about this conversation that's unique is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking questions and Ramananda Raya is speaking. Now, normally, we see the other way around, right? But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking questions and Ramananda Raya is speaking. Now, Ramananda Raya understands his position. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would say, speak on this, he's saying, how I can speak to you? You only are in my heart, giving me all this knowledge, and I am just repeating it back to you. What is the point? The point was for all of us. But even Chaitanya Krishna himself enjoys to hear. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was enjoying to hear. So you can see in this exchange one thing of great importance, that Ramananda Raya had extraordinary humility in approaching this discussion with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself had extraordinary humility in approaching this conversation. When spiritual conversations take place, where the speaker, like Ramananda Raya in this case, and the hearer, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, both take a very humble position, then something can be accomplished. Then something can happen positive. If either the speaker is in a non-humble position or the listener is in a non-humble position, not much will manifest. So we see how they met each other to understand this. So this is the first evening of conversations has taken place, and some other conversations have taken place. And so now this is nearing the end of their meeting, because eventually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will carry on his trip and continue with his mission. So we'll read, this is a series of questions posed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Ramananda Raya. And Ramanada Ray's discussion back is startling. His answers are startling. And they're extraordinarily consistent. By the time I read the third question, you'll already know the answer. Because it's the same answer over and over again. But this repetition is important for us. Because at least speaking for myself, there's a stubbornness that is hard to penetrate. So we have to hear it over and over and over again. And Srila Prabhupada comments that in the purport, text 245 to 257 are all questions and answers between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramanada Raya. In these exchanges, there is an attempt to show the difference between material and spiritual existence. It is this distinction that is the key to everything in life. Until we understand there is a distinction, we'll be in a mode of confusion. So these questions are meant to bring about a very clear distinction in our existence between spiritual pursuits and material pursuits. And you'll see these questions to be very relevant to our day-to-day experiences. Okay, enough build-up. Let's get into it. Y'all are probably wondering, is he ever going to get to one of these questions? Okay. So text 245. On one occasion, the Lord inquired, of all types of education, which is the most important? And Ramananda Raya replied, Harvard degree? Oxford? IIT degree? Ramananda Raya replied, no education is important other than the transcendental devotional service of Krishna. Now, that takes some understanding. And that takes some distinction between material existence and spiritual existence. But just as it's unfathomable to think 50% plus of lottery winners regret that they won the lottery, we'll also discuss how material education, the highest and highest and highest of degrees that we may obtain from university, what do they teach us to do? In general, not specific.
How to get a job.
How to get a job.
Have more money.
How to get some money. How to, what do you say? Think?
I said to think.
To think. At the end of the day, if you really boil it down, all that education teaches us how to eat nicely, sleep nicely, mate nicely, and defend nicely. Anything else? Now, I'm not here to suggest material education doesn't have great value. It has value. But it has value when it is connected to spiritual education. Unconnected to spiritual education, it can only teach us how to eat, sleep, mate, and defend. And the result of all material education is very limited in duration and limited in what it can give us. Are the graduates of the highest universities the happiest in the world? Nope. Then how we can say it has achieved the goal of life? What is the goal of life?
Happiness.
Only thing we all have. Every single person is looking for the same thing. But we cannot say those with the highest degrees in the world have something nobody else has. Yeah, they got a piece of a diploma. Maybe a sweater with an H on it or something. But other than that, they haven't achieved. And even if you've achieved some great knowledge, you know, one of my favorite lines, Albert Einstein, in his next life, had to learn 2 plus 2 all over again. How long this knowledge lasts?
Till you drop your body.
Till you're in this body. But spiritual knowledge knowledge of the soul. Who am I? And what is my eternal relationship with the Lord? That knowledge can bring about perfection of life. And whatever knowledge we acquire in relation to our spiritual soul, that knowledge is eternally ours. No matter when we may leave this body, that knowledge we have acquired, Krishna says, there is no loss or diminution. You carry that forward to your next existence. So whatever investment we make in acquiring spiritual knowledge, there is no loss. And as we'll see as we go forward, it is only through the means of devotional service that one can find real happiness. Because the spirit soul is who we are. We are not this body. I don't have to go through that example again. We are not this body. But all material education is only teaching us about this body, the material platform. Srila Prabhupada, when he went to MIT, he said, where is the department of the soul? I see biology department, engineering department, English department, history department. Where is the soul department? Where are you teaching who we are? Because that is what can give peace and happiness. So Ramanada Raya is saying, no education is important other than transcendental devotional service of Krishna. So we liken material education to a bunch of zeros. Whether you have 1 0 or 100 zeros, it's all zero. But as soon as you put a 1 in front of that, now those zeros
Have a value.
have value. What is that 1? That is Krishna. When you can have great degrees, it has value when it is connected with the Lord. That is the instruction Ramananda is giving us. In the next verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then asked Ramanada Raya, out of all glorious activities, which is the most glorious? Ramanada Raya replied, that person who is reputed to be a devotee of Lord Krishna enjoys the utmost fame and glory. Now, a devotee of Krishna does not become a devotee of Krishna to enjoy fame. But we see throughout society, everybody is looking for fame. How many Facebook friends I have, how many Twitter followers I have. The rich of the rich, self-promotion, to politicians. This fame is, everyone is in search of fame. But Ramananda Raya is reminding us that the very, very rich person, or the very, very beautiful person, or the very, very intelligent person, their fame is very short-lived. As soon as they leave, deceased, people are on to the new flavor. You know, we may know the very rich people today, but anybody knows the rich people from the 1700s or the 1800s? So much we forget. But the great saintly personalities who have left a treasure trove of knowledge that can bring about peace and happiness, they are known throughout the world. It's amazing. You can go virtually anywhere in the world, even today, and if you're walking with a bead bag, someone will say, Hare Krishna. That is Srila Prabhupada's fame. He is known throughout the world. Any corner you go. I remember we went to Peru once, and we were walking, and there was, just around the corner, there was a temple and a Govindas and devotees in a place we had no expectation. And they knew Srila Prabhupada, everything. So the fame, the most glorious of activities that are being most cherished in the world is of spiritual activities. Though the devotee does not desire any fame, there's one great verse from the Garuda Puran, excuse me. It says, quote, "In this age of Kali, the fame of one who is known as a great devotee is very rare. However, such a position is superior to that of even great demigods like Brahma and Mahadev. That is the opinion of all spiritual masters." This comes from our Shastra as well. And there are many, many quotes and references given by Srila Prabhupada in that purport. But in the interest of time, we'll carry on. Text 247. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, out of the many capitalists who possess riches, who is the topmost? And Ramanada Raya replied, he who is richest in love for Radha and Krishna is the greatest capitalist. Not the lottery winner. What do we want wealth for? What is the purpose of any wealth?
Freedom.
Freedom. So that you can find
Happiness.
happiness. It all boils down to that same repeated theme. Right? 500 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, there wasn't money. So what was wealth? Whatever raw materials we could barter, we could trade. So the means of exchange may have changed, but the concept hasn't changed. But Ramanada Raya is saying, who is the wealthiest of all capitalists? He who has a Swiss bank account?
No.
He who is richest in love for Radha and Krishna is the greatest capitalist. Why? Because wealth is a means to an end. That desired end is happiness. And one who has understood their relationship with Krishna can find real happiness. That is wealth. That is value. Sanatana Goswami was a great Goswami who was instructed personally by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And once there was a Brahmana who wanted to marry off his daughter, but he had no money. We know weddings are expensive. Those who have daughters know for sure. Very expensive. So he went to pray to Lord Shiva. He said, help me, I want to marry my daughter. And being a nice devotee, he was pleasing to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva was very pleased with him. So he didn't give him money. What? That doesn't sound like he was very pleased with him. He said, no, you go to Vrindavan and you go meet Sanatana Goswami. He has something of extraordinary value. So this Brahmana went and he went to Vrindavan. There Sanatana Goswami was seated on the banks of the Yamuna near Kaliya Ghat, where Krishna had subdued the Kaliya demon. And he said, I understand you have something of great value. Something very valuable. This touchstone. And this touchstone was such that you can take any stone and you touch to it and it'll turn into gold. Now, that sounds like something really valuable. Touch any stone and produce gold? I can do a lot with gold. So Sanatana Goswami said, sure. And underneath this pile of trash was this touchstone. And he said, dig it out from there and you can have it. Really? I can have it? Yeah. And so this Brahmana took this touchstone and started walking away and he tested it. Is this real? He's walking. And then he thought, wait a minute. Where was this sadhu keeping this touchstone? He was seated with just a loincloth. No hermitage anywhere in sight. And he was keeping this touchstone under a pile of trash. Why he would do that? This Brahmana thought. He said he must have something more valuable than this. Like if you're a billionaire You don't think about a couple $100.
Pocket change.
Pocket change. But to us, we go running for it. So he thought, wow, he must have something even more valuable. So he ran back. And he says, Sadhu, I'm perplexed. You have kept this under a pile of trash. You must have something more valuable. Yeah. He says, you want to know what it is? He says, yes. He said, okay. You take this touchstone, you go to the river Yamuna, and you must throw it in the river and then come back. Ramananda had faith. This touchstone was working. He said, this guy has got to have something good for me. So he comes back. And Sanatana Goswami said, now you want the most valuable thing? You take to the process of chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I have nothing more valuable than that. By the process of chanting the holy names of the Lord, you will obtain everything. And he says, well, who will marry my daughter? He says, you just stay here and chant, and you see how Krishna will reciprocate with all of your desires. And so we can see that the great learned saints, they understand what is real value. Because the only thing of value is something that can give me real peace and happiness. And knowing how to eat nicely, sleep nicely, mate nicely, defend nicely. Because we know one thing, factually. Those with the most zeros in their bank account, do they have the most happiness?
No.
So there must be some other wealth that is the key to happiness. And that wealth, Ramanada Raya is saying, the wealth of love for Radha and Krishna. That is real capitalism. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, of all kinds of distress, what is the most painful? And Sri Ramanada Raya replied, when my iPhone is out of power, when there's no more gulab jamuns in the prasadam line. Sri Ramananda Raya replied, apart from separation from devotees of Krishna, I know no unbearable happiness. He says, I know no unbearable happiness. Not tax day coming, getting the pink slip from your employer, minus 12 degree weather. Not that we've ever experienced that. Nothing. We have a long list of things that can give us distress. But to a devotee, none of it gives distress. The only thing is separation from association of the devotees of Krishna. That is the rarest of rarest gifts. How rare is it to come in association with the devotee of Krishna? How rare? Very rare. How rare is very rare? In their scriptures it explains that the probability of a living entity coming in association with a devotee of the Lord is equivalent to the probability of a turtle who is swimming underwater. And a turtle swimming underwater has to come up for air. And it says the probability is equivalent to the probability that when that turtle comes up for air in a vast ocean, just as it is about to break the plane of the water, there is a log floating right above its head. And not only is there a log, at the exact point at which the turtle's head is going to break the water, and when the log floats over, there is a hole in that log that is the exact size, plus 1 millimeter, of the turtle's head. And so when it comes up, it gets stuck in that log. Now what is the probability of that happening?
1 by a million, 1 by an infinity.
Probably infinity. That our Shastra explains, is the rarity of coming in association with the pure devotee of the Lord. And we all have the fortune of being in the association of Srila Prabhupada through his books and through the subsequent acharyas. But sometimes we take it for granted. But think about it. How many billions of living entities are all around us? In the ground. Don't think just humans. In the air. Birds, creepers, worms. So many. And how many of us are here today? Having a chance to hear this nectar from Srila Prabhupada. It is very rare. Like that turtle breaking the ocean. So to Ramananda Raya, the only thing that's unbearable distress is separation. For devotees, association with Krishna and his devotees is like oxygen. If we are separated from oxygen for a few moments, it is a very desperate situation. That is the feeling of one who has tasted the bliss of devotional life. Once you taste it, watch out. And why association of devotees? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains to Sanatana Goswami that association is the only means to bring about this spirit of bhakti, of devotion in our hearts. It is so important for our spiritual life. Our bhakti, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains, is like a creeper, a vine. A vine may be 30, 40 years old in maturity, but is still very fragile. With a snip of the scissors, you can cut the vine. A tree as it grows becomes thick, but a vine does not. He says your bhakti is like a vine. It is a creeper. It is bhakti lata, not bhakti vriksha. Bhakti vriksha forms in association. But individually, we are a small vine. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, if you plant a small vine on the side of a road, what do? You put a fence around it. Why? Because you don't want somebody to trample it, a bicycle or a car, or, in India, a goat or a cow or something. You have to put a protective fence around it. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, we have to put a protective fence around our bhakti. What is that protective fence? It is association. Association of devotees is that protective fence for us. That protects that bhakti lata. And how long we need that protective fence?
Throughout our life.
It is a creeper. It is always fragile. So, Ramananda Raya is saying the only thing that is unbearable in distress, not lack of money, lack of fame, a bad hair day, not enough clothes, not enough food, or gulab jamuns, or even rasgulla. No. It is not having the opportunity to associate. Srila Prabhupada worked so hard to establish these 108 temples around the world. Why? For one reason. To give us an opportunity to associate and make progress in devotional life. He writes this in the Nectar of Instruction and repeatedly in his purport. I have to carry forward, otherwise I'll be late. So, I'll read forward a couple more. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, out of all auspicious and beneficial activities, which is the best for the living entity? Any of us want to know this? What is the best I can do? And Ramananda Raya replied, yes. The only auspicious activity is association with the devotees of Krishna. Drawing this distinction between matter and spirit. once again. There are so many choices we have every day. Every day we wake up. So many choices of what to do. And Ramanada Raya is saying the only auspicious activity is association with the devotees of Krishna. Because from that, we can find our real happiness and real peace. You know, when Prahlad Maharaj was asked by his father Hiranyakashipu, what is the best that you learned in school? What he replied? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. This hearing, chanting, remembering. That is the best I've learned. Because that is what can bring about this happiness. And so in the association of devotees, we can come to understand that. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, what should all living entities constantly remember? Ramananda Roy replied, who won the cricket match last night? That's what we should remember. We should remember where we're going on vacation next. He says, the chief objects of remembrance are always the Lord's holy names, qualities, and pastimes. The essence of all bhakti is to remember the Lord, to remember His names, His pastimes, His qualities, His form. That is the only thing to remember. So many things we put into our database. But the essence of all bhakti is to constantly remember Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, where should the living entity live, abandoning all other places? Hawaii? Some Caribbean island? Troy, Michigan? Ramananda Raya replied, he should live in the holy place known as Vrindavan, or Rajabhumi, where the Lord performed his rasa dance. So does this mean we all have to go and pack our bags and go to Vrindavan? It would be nice. Prabhuji just came from Vrindavan. It would be nice. That is the dream. But we all can make Vrindavan here also. We have Vrindavan within us, within the vicinity. Where does Vrindavan exist?
Temple.
The home of Shri Shri Radha Kunja Bihari. Kunja Bihari, the king of the pleasure groves of Vrindavan. Anywhere where Krishna is the center of activities, that is Vrindavan. In Rajabhumi, there is only one focus. From all the residents of Vrindavan to the birds and creepers and tree, everything. They have only one desire, and that is to please Krishna. Krishna is the center of activities. And what is Krishna's only desire? To please all the living entities of Vrindavan. It is a two-way street with the Lord. It is not a one-way street. So how to make even our home Vrindavan? We can make our home Vrindavan. Vrindavan is not a physical, geographic destination. It is a state of consciousness. By making Krishna the center of our home, of our family life, we can also take residence in Rajabhumi while having a co-zip code of Troy, Michigan. But it has to come into consciousness. By bringing the Lord, by bringing Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam into our homes. By understanding this is the Lord's home. And I am staying not in the master bedroom, but in the servant bedroom. Serving the Lord, who is giving me all the means for this facility. Then we can establish even Rajabhumi here. In Shastra, it explains that when a pure devotee travels, he brings the holy places there. Srila Prabhupada came and personally established the Devasadan Mandir. He stayed in that temple. He translated books there. He personally bought it. He certainly established Sri Vrindavan Dham there. That is without a doubt.
So did Srila Prabhupada install our Radha Kunj Bihari also, Prabhu?
He installed the deities there. Yes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, of all the topics people listen to, what is the best for all living entities? This we should hear very carefully. We listen to so much stuff. I can say nonsense. Ramanada Raya replied, hearing about the loving affairs between Radha and Krishna is most pleasing to the ear. See, when we hear about Krishna, it will then inspire us to awaken our loving relationship with Him. As soon as I hear about something nice, a desire to experience that manifests. It's natural. If I hear about the beautiful beaches of Hawaii, what happens?
You want to go there?
You want to go there. A desire to go there. Now, do you have to create that desire? Do you have to force that desire?
No, it automatically comes as an urge.
It automatically comes. Well, our natural instinct is to love one. And that is Krishna. That is the natural instinct of all of us. It is innate to who we are. And that is to love Krishna. But we have reposed our love in so many different things. To even rocks in the ground. I love this diamond. It is a piece of carbon compressed into a rock in the ground, yet I cherish it like no other. How foolish Maya has convinced us to love even pebbles in the ground. But our natural instinct is to only love Krishna. But before I knew about the beaches of Hawaii, did I have any desire to go there? No. I had to hear about it first. So how am I going to bring about my natural instinct to love Krishna? I have to hear about Him. I have to hear, who is He? What is He like? What activities does He do? What are His different names? What are His qualities? What does He look like? By hearing, then the attraction will come. So Nectar Devotion, we have one guide to gauge how much progress am I making in bhakti. It doesn't matter how straight your tilak is or how many verses you can recite. One measure is how eager am I to hear about Krishna. The degree of my eagerness to hear is a measure of my progress in bhakti. So Ramanada Raya is saying, of all the things to hear about Krishna.
Krishna.
I'll read one more. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, among all worshipable objects, which is the chief? We have so many things we worship. Ramanada Raya replied, the chief worshipable object is the holy name of Radha and Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra. The chanting of the holy names is so powerful. We have no concept of how invaluable the chanting is. We know Sanatana Goswami said even more valuable than the touchstone was the chanting of the holy names. But the only worshipable object, Ramananda Raya is saying, is the holy names. Because by the potency of the holy names, one can achieve everything. Such a simple process. Just chant. Just chant. Just chant. And from that, everything will manifest. It's right there. But how will we know the power of chanting? When will we know the power of chanting?
When we do it.
When we do it. If I bring you a piece of cake and I say it is sweet and it is delicious and moist and amazingly baked, I can speak about it until I'm blue in the face. When will you know?
When you consume.
When you taste it. This chanting is so powerful. We can provide all the evidence and all the Shastric injunctions and all the information. But until we do it, we'll not be able to relish it. So just try it. Just chant and see for yourself. So like this discussion continues. We read most of the verses, but it is getting late. So I don't want to prolong. So we see in these questions and answers, there's a consistency of answers guiding our focus. We have so many aims, but the real aim of life that can achieve our goal is reconnecting our relationship with the Lord. It is through a spiritual means that the spirit soul will find happiness. Spirit doesn't mix with matter. We're trying to mix it with matter and trying to relish stones in the ground, but it's not happening. But when we bring our spirit soul in contact with the Supreme Spirit, then happiness manifests. And this Chaitanya Charitamrita is a full set of instructions, practical discussions like this, revealing how to bring about this love of God within all of us. Because love of Krishna is our only wealth, our only capital, the best of education, the best of worshipful objects, the best goal. That is it. So, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Any questions or comments? Yes.
So we were discussing about Srila Prabhupada establishing 108 temples across the world. I've also heard from another class that he also did it with another intention, that throughout the time 24/7, somewhere or the other in those 108 temples across the world, Krishna is being constantly worshipped. Because if it is morning in India, it is night in America, and it's afternoon in Europe. So all those 3 times the worship is going on. Is that also a valid interpretation about the reason?
I wouldn't call it a reason, but I'd call it an outcome. The reason ultimately Srila Prabhupada established a temple was out of his extraordinary compassion. He wanted to give, just like in society, city planners, they want to make hospitals available to every citizen. They want no citizen to be inaccessible to health care. But what is the value of maintaining this body if I'm not maintaining the nature of the soul? The temples are a spiritual hospital. They are a hospital to cure the disease of the soul. And so Srila Prabhupada, his inspiration was to make those hospitals accessible to every living entity of the world. So that whoever had a desire could very easily and quickly become cured from that disease. A temple is not just a place to ring a bell, drop a few books in the hundi, put in our order, and leave. The temple is a spiritual hospital to give us knowledge about how to cure the diseases that we have permanently. Just like when we go into Beaumont or Henry Ford, we want cure of our disease. The spiritual hospitals give us that with this knowledge. So that is questions, comments? Yes?
I have a question, and I want to try to word it correctly, but
Yeah. Don't worry so much about the wording. Just go.
Swami Prabhupada, in this rendition that I have, says that the underlying foundation of religion as a whole is service, devoted service to the Lord and to each other. How would you connect that underlying message to someone who wouldn't perceive Krishna as personality of Godhead, but their own relationship with whatever personality that they would associate with God.
Yeah, so service, devotional service is an expression of love. So to those who we love, we serve. Mother serves child because they love. Child will serve mother because they love. I may serve my country because I love my country. So service is an expression of love. It has a negative connotation because of the adulterated use of service in society, but service in its pure form is love. We all have a need to love and to be loved. Every living entity has a need to love and to be loved. So that love and to be loved can only come about through the activity of service. So the universal activity of all living entities is to serve. And you see it. We're all serving something, somebody, someone. Srila Prabhupada would always say, if you have no family to serve, you have no job to serve, if you have no one else to serve, you'll get one dog and you'll serve that dog. But you'll serve someone. Because it is actually the nature of the soul is to serve. So then the question becomes, where can I get the most experience of love in my service? I have to serve. It is the nature of who I am. And service is an expression of love. So now where to serve? And when the living entity comes to repose its love at the lotus feet of Krishna, it finds its full fulfillment, complete fulfillment. From that point which nothing else feels necessary. Everything else feels secondary because there's such a reciprocation. And Prabhupada writes this in the introduction to the Nectar Devotion. It's a very beautiful paragraph where he says that when we find where to repose our love, we have found perfection. So we are searching all these different areas. So someone who is loving another living entity or another whatever person, it's okay. And we can ask, are you finding that satisfaction? Are you finding that glory? And we can say, try also adding some love to Krishna. Krishna doesn't say, hey, if you want to love me, you have to stop loving everything else. A husband and wife say that. You enter and hey, you got to stop everyone else. Krishna is kind. He says, you know what? Even before you stop loving everything else, just start a little bit with me. Chant my names. Don't worry. And by that experience, whoa, this is something different than one. So, that's how we can understand it. It is the nature of who we are. It is not a question of if to serve. It is just a question of to whom. That is the natural position of all of us. Okay?
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Sufficiently warn everybody out. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nanda Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. So now we'll chant